To disassemble the MPC2000, make sure the power is off, the power cord is removed, and there's nothing around that can damage the circuit boards. Remove the note variation slider cap and remove the 2 large screws on each of the side panels. Here and here. Remove the 3 screws underneath the front bezel. Sometimes these are missing because they strip out. Pull out the front bezel and remove the 3 screws holding the case down in the front. Here, here, and here. Remove the 3 screws holding the case down in the back. If you get your screws mixed up, the black ones with the wider threads are for the rear, the black ones with the smaller threads are for the front, the small silver ones are for underneath the bezel, and the large ones are for the sides. Now you can remove the case and set it to the side. Here we can see the control board and the pads. This is the EEPROM that controls the functionality. Common repairs are fixing the TACT switches underneath the arrow keys, replacing the data encoder or note variation slider, swapping out the LCD, or changing out a worn out pad sensor sheet. The rubber pads just lift off. If you're doing a pad sensor repair, you need to undo the clip on this connector and pull out the ribbon cable, then peel back the sensor sheet. It's like a giant sticker. When putting on the new one, clean up the residue and line up the holes, stick it onto the metal frame. You'll likely have to cut the new cable to length before inserting back into the clip. If you look on the back of the main board behind the SCSI port, you'll see the SCSI fuse. If you're not getting power to your SCSI device, you'll need to replace this. It's 2 pins and labeled FS1 on the circuit board right here. To remove the control panel, remove the 2 screws on each side and the screw in the middle if you have one. This unit's short one, and that's okay. I should also mention that the volume and record knobs just pull right off. Be careful when removing this panel. You have to disconnect the ribbon cable from the main board. I pull it up like this and undo the connector one-handed. The sides of the connector push out and pop the cable upward. This can be tricky at first, so just take your time. Now we reveal the floppy drive, RAM, which I'll show you how to remove, expansion slots, and power supply. To remove a memory stick, pull out the tabs on the side and remove it at an angle. Note the notch in the memory stick. If you try and put it in backwards, it won't fit, so make sure you key the notch to the memory slot. Sometimes these need to be reseated or replaced. Use like pairs of 8 megabytes or 16 megabytes or just 1 stick. If you use just 1 stick, it will add the onboard RAM, and 16 megabytes would become 18 megabytes. If you have 2 sticks, it bypasses the onboard memory. Reinsert the stick at an angle and swivel up. The tabs will click. If it doesn't feel right, back it out and make sure it's fully seated before tilting up. To do a floppy repair, remove the 4 screws on bottom and use them in the new drive. Only disconnect the floppy cable from the floppy drive. The board side of the cable stays connected to the board. To remove the LCD, remove the 2 screws on the sides, the power cable underneath, and the ribbon cable behind it. When you're all done and you're putting the control panel back, make sure the cable is in there securely and that the control panel is properly aligned. Get all the screws in the panel first and then tighten them down. Personally, I do it in a diagonal pattern. Line the pads up with the sensor using the nipples and the holes as your guide. When putting the case back on, I like to line up the back first and then kind of wrap it over the buttons as I come forward. Now install the 3 screws in the front and then the 3 screws in the back. Pop the bezel back on and then do the side panel screws. Finally, now do the screws on bottom, put the slider back, put on the slider and the knobs if you took them off. Pop on a Zulu SCSI, make sure it's plugged in, boot the machine, and we're back in business. Boot, disk, and chill, make more beats.